Hi, I'm Mike Coyle from Insidexploration. We're here in Reno, Nevada, catching up with Chairman and CEO of RNC Minerals, Paul Huet. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to meet with us.
Hey Mike, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So you've been in the role of CEO of RNC Minerals now for the last, 2 months? How are things going?
Yeah, actually you're right, it's been already 7 or 8 weeks. It was July 20th when I took over. There's been a lot of changes in the last 2 weeks. We've managed to accomplish quite a few things, set ourselves on a strategy and make sure that we're executing that strategy. The integration of Western Australia has become very important to us in focusing on the gold. As you know, we recently announced again another strong positive month with production through our mill with a little over 8,000 ounces. So that's 2 months in a row of 8,000 ounces a month.
8,000 ounces is pretty good as a follow-up to your first month production back in full production with 7,900 ounces. I know we weren't supposed to extrapolate that over the annuum, but that's giving you a pretty positive outlook for your run rate, doesn't it?
Look, we're really looking and focused on our future of this company. We really listen to our shareholders. We appreciate what they say. This company evolving from an exploration and something sustainable is a huge shift for this company. Some of the marketing I've recently done just explains that we're really set and focused on our gold. We have a nickel asset that we think great of. Nickel is coming. You're seeing some great things happen with nickel as well as gold, but we own 28% of that asset. So we recognize that it is a great asset and it's something that's very promising. But at the end of the day, what's going to drive value for our shareholders and for our company is the focus on the gold in Western Australia. And that's our strategy. Our strategy is make sure our integration with that new mill, that we can sustain this production and keep the mill full. The financing was really instrumental in making sure that that mill is kept full. It will allow us opportunity to be drilling at Higginsville to make sure that we have plans in front of ourselves so that we're not getting outside feed for that mill, so that we're filling that mill at capacity for our shareholders, so that we're making sure we take advantage of this metal price and put that ore that's going through that mill coming from our own asset rather than toll milling for someone else. This is really an accretive thing to advance things and reduce risk for our company and our shareholders. It sets us on a path that we were certainly not on. This is a game changer for this company.
So your focus is not necessarily Dumont at this point in time. You're focused on your Australian assets, and Graham's heading that up. It's great. What are you seeing out of the Higginsville operation, particularly Bellew right now?
Yeah, so let me just talk quickly, Mike, about Dumont. So we did appoint Jonna as president of the nickel division, which she's going to do a great job for. And we don't ever want to underestimate that value. So she's going to be supported in her role at Dumont. Graham accepting the managing director of Western Australia is really where our next several years is going to come out for our shareholders, where we're going to be focused at delivering cash flow, delivering revenue, increasing the resource. Higginsville, we just started the Bellew pit. We started it probably about 4 weeks ago. Graham and his team have done a great job at getting it put together. The grades have exceeded, they're north of 2 grams for an open pit. These are pretty phenomenal grades coming out of an open pit. Those contribute to those 2 successful months that we saw of 8,000 and 8,000 ounces. And I don't want to dive into the costs right now. We're working through the costs and reporting. The company is at an infancy stage at getting all this stuff prepared. We've never put in a 2P reserve. We've never put out guidance. We're assembling all that. Our reporting is changing radically. We've only had the mill for 2 months. So all these numbers we're collecting, we're reporting, and we'll provide some really good numbers on all-in sustaining costs, our guidance, and everything going forward. So, you know, people sometimes forget that we've only had it, and I've only been here for 6-7 weeks. So a lot has changed in that period with respect to the strategy, the focus, and what we're delivering. We are delivering, and that's going to be something we'll consistently do.
So you've seen the mill, you've been using the mill for about 2 months now. Everything's running smoothly with the mill, no hiccups so far?
Yeah, look, Mike, I don't know. I've probably had under my operations 8 mills in my career. To say our mill is running smoothly, I think would be an irony. Our mill is just like anything else. It has some hiccups, but we have certainly bought a mill that is something very stout. This thing is 10 years old. It was $100 million to build this mill. It's going to require a bit of maintenance here and there. Graham is really changing the culture here where we're starting to do stuff preventatively. Mm-hmm. We had the first mill shutdown in a very long time. It was proactive. It was a planned shutdown. While I'm not going to say it's running perfect, Graham will be out there going, oh my gosh, you're misleading people. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm telling you the mill is something that is in really good shape. We need to give it a little more love to get it into the position where we want it to be. We'd like to see our mill at a 98% availability. All our downs are planned outages, something that we're pre-planning and we're being proactive. And we are changing that very, very quickly with the new appointment of Graham. And again, look, we've had it 60 days here. So huge change to this company. In 2 months, we did 16,000 ounces, Mike. Mm-hmm. In the first half of the year, we did 14,000 ounces. So we're really setting ourselves up for an interesting future for this company.
You just touched base again on the production of Higginsville with your 8,000 ounces of gold. What kind of output are you doing with the nickel right now?
Actually, that's a good question. I know that in the interview, Graham, he talked a bit about the nickel. You know, even I forget sometimes that Beta Hunt was actually a nickel operation before it became gold. So there's, you know, Graham said it best, optionality, and that's the best word to use. We have tremendous optionality with the nickel at our Beta Hunt operation. Not only do we have the advantage of these high-grade specimens that we hit, and we're really understanding the geology, but we're going to have an advantage. When nickel prices move, we're already absorbing these fixed costs. Our people are on site. Our equipment is on site. We're paying for the lights to be on. For us to take advantage of adding maybe 4 or 5 miners and increasing nickel production is a tremendous opportunity for us and our shareholders. That will reduce our all-in sustaining costs. Actually, that will have a direct impact on it. We're going to be able to take the nickel revenue and apply it directly as a byproduct to our costs. And since I've been here, we've actually been able to do one lot with BHP. We treated one lot of nickel, and we made almost about $1 million in a very short period of time frame. Now that might not seem like a lot of money, but if you apply that towards your operating costs, that has huge benefits. And again, we're already there. For us to add those are just incremental. We're paying variable costs on that. Our fixed costs are already absorbed by us being there mining the gold. So that's going to be a differentiator for us at RNC. We have the fact that we have a centralized mill, 2 operations. We have specimens, some of the higher grade specimens at Beta Hunt, but we also have the optionality, an opportunity of reducing our overall cost by injecting nickel into the mixture here into our recipe. And we don't have to do anything at our mill, and it doesn't take up any space at our mill, and that's an important thing, Mike. Mm-hmm. Our mill right now is full with our own ore. This mill was used to toll treat a lot of other ores in Western Australia. If we're mining nickel, we get to just throw that on a truck and we get that to another company and we get paid for it.
You touched on gold specimens, and I was curious, have you monetized your specimens yet, or when do you plan on doing so?
Yeah, look, that was another important thing for me and the board, even with the financing. Look, monetizing the gold specimens, we've had those things for a year. They're not, you don't snap your fingers and monetize them. We have had several of them that were under contract. We've honored those contracts and will continue to honor those. But those that were not under contract, we've made a conscious decision with the increase in metal price that we're getting such a good delta. It makes more sense now than to continue paying to store them somewhere, because you have to pay for storage and insurance and security for these things. It made more sense for us to actually monetize them. So those that weren't under contract, we made a decision to melt them down and monetize them.
Well, it's good to hear that they're being monetized and you're not paying for storage and security. As you said, that does come at a cost. Do you plan on, if you mine another pocket out, do you plan on keeping more specimens, or are you just putting them all into production numbers now from now on?
Look, that's a good question, Mike. Look, I've been mining gold for 30 plus years in my career, and that's exactly what I do for a living and for my shareholders. I mine the gold. I don't collect it. There are some unique opportunities where some specimens make a lot of sense that we would always take advantage of. I think in some areas here we may have collected too many specimens. We'll be making sure that we're focused on monetizing them. And look, things are different too. Let's face it. In the past, RNC didn't have a mill. We have a mill here. Some of the decisions that were taken made a lot of sense in the past, but having your own mill and paying for storage on specimens and trying to sell them in the open market, unless you have a buyer ahead of time, we should be monetizing it as soon as we mine it and getting the money for it and paying our vendors and putting the money into treasury and drilling holes and increasing our resources, increasing our reserves, and making good decisions for our shareholders.
So along the lines of good decisions, what's your plan of attack for between the 15 and 16 levels?
Yeah, so Graham touched on that. I believe it's scheduled to come out at this point in the first quarter of 2020. And I know that probably people would like to see that accelerated, and so would I, to be honest. We all would like to see that accelerated. As I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, one of the things I've been looking at is operations specifically. My background is operations. I don't want to paint us in a corner here, but I will say that I'll be working closely with Graham and his team on the ground there to see what we can do to accelerate taking that block out sooner rather than later. So without jeopardizing anything or sterilizing anything and creating any future problems, we're going to do what's best to get that into a mill or on the ground as soon as possible.
And we'll see that plan in the guidance that you're going to be putting out in the next few weeks?
Well, that's a good question, Mike. I don't think you'll see the level of detail in that, but in this case, it might make sense to actually drive down to that level of detail and actually show when we're planning to take that out. Typically, you would see guidance by quarter. You wouldn't see where it's coming from by area. But in this case, it might make sense to actually I know that people are very curious as to when that comes out. So I think there's value in making an exception in this case where we'd say, look, this is our guidance by year, here it is by quarter. But specifically for this area, we intend to take it out in this quarter. So that might make sense, actually.
So do you intend on continuing this trend of updating shareholders on a monthly basis of your production, or are you going to hold off till quarter by quarter?
Look, I said this on the call as well. With the amount of retail shareholders we have, reporting quarterly really is insufficient. I think what we've been hearing is loud and clear is that we should report more frequently, and we're going to do that. We intend to do that. We'll report out here monthly. We can't include the costs. They got to be audited. As everyone knows, we got to audit those costs before we do that. But we surely can start giving monthly updates on where we're at with respect to production and demonstrate a trend going forward. So overall, as a company, our goal and one of our strategies is to report more frequently. In the past, with any other company I've ever worked for, any company, we've reported out quarterly, and it's always been the case. We will make an exception here based on where the present situation this company is in.
So we've touched base a few times on the ASX listing, and I noticed that in your new presentation that there's a nice little spot there for the ASX listing. So that's obviously an area of focus for you. Have you made any headway on that? Yeah,
look, and I'm going to keep going back to that beginning where I said the last 7 weeks I've been focused on board, executive, and that has come up in the executive thing. It is certainly one of the objectives that we are going to focus on, target, and believe get done. It's not something that you snap your fingers and it gets done. It takes some effort, and we're prepared to do the work and get it done.
So I've been in mining for a fair bit of time now, and every company that I've worked with has always tried to find ways of reducing costs. How are some of the ways that you're going about doing that?
That's actually a good question, Mike. We, like you, we're no different. We're always looking at measures and areas that we can reduce costs. Any synergies we have. Obviously, the one right out of the gate that people can, we get to take advantage of is the mill. That mill is a tremendous synergy for 2 mines feeding 1 mill. We no longer have to wait to treat our ore through someone else's mill or pay that extra premium. Another area that we have identified that we really got to fight for and is royalties. We know that we are paying significant amount in royalties. We've begun discussions with 2 of the large royalty holders and open up discussions to try to find common grounds to reduce those. We owe it to ourselves and our shareholders to really fight for those reductions. That's an area that we're going to be paying a lot of attention in. That's an area that I specifically will be focused in. And then there's a lot of other synergies that we get to take advantage of. Most people who take an MBA, I took some kind of course at Stanford here, an executive course, and we did a lot of case studies on synergies, and they always demonstrated what textbook case studies were. This would be what we are faced with here with RNC today is a perfect case study that you'd use for an MBA showing, look, there's so many synergies with respect to diesel, power, explosives, ventilation. We're meeting with the top 20 vendors. Graham has made an initiative to meet with the top 20 vendors. Look, and the top 20 vendors spends 80% of all our costs. Once he puts that list together and he meets with each of them and says, we are now buying in bulk and we want a long-term relationship with you. I've done this 6 other times, and I started this when I worked for Newmont actually, and I've yet to see where this hasn't brought in some savings. Every time you sit in front of someone else, another company, and you say, look, here's what we've paid you so far. We're now doubling our orders because we have 2 mines instead of 1. We're both located in Western Australia. We would like to see a longer term partnership. How can you help reduce the cost? 90% of the time you'll see that vendor is willing to work with you for a longer term relationship. So your question on cost is a very good question, and it's something that part of our integration we're aggressively working on in several areas. So thanks.
Well, thanks a lot, Paul, for meeting up with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Hopefully we can catch up again in the very near future and kind of discuss how things have progressed since. Absolutely, yeah. There's no better way to spend a Saturday in Nevada is with you, Mike. So yeah, it's been great. We're looking forward to some of the things we're doing, and our future is bright with RNC. So thanks a lot.